Hello, hello, hello. This is The Whistler with me, Elisabeth Edgell. I'm the admin of Delaware County Community Awareness and the editor of the Manifest Destiny Reporter. And I have my co host here today, Rick Yencer. Rick is a former newsman and author, as well as an outlaw. How are you today, Rick?
Oh, I'm doing great on a nice sunny day here in lovely central Indiana.
Yes, it is a beautiful day. Today we are going to talk about city council, ethics. We're going to do a brief run through here in a second of the breaking news. We're going to talk about, just lots and lots. We got all kinds of things
Lots
going
happening.
on. Yes. All right. So there's going to be stuff from the city council, which is about a week ago, all the way up through what's been happening as of yesterday. Well,
Exactly.
today, actually.
And today,
All
too.
right. So we're going to start with Mr. Troy Ingram, our current sitting at-large city council member running for re-election. He has had some difficulty with his re-election paperwork, candidacy. So he filed his paperwork after filling it out online using the online program. I guess there's something wrong with some of the boxes that he didn't check. It was a clerical error or an online form error, really. I work with websites, so I know those forms can be maddening sometimes if you pick an overcomplicated one or if you have several different types, ones that gather data, ones that you put check boxes in,
Right.
They're very hard to make sure they're perfect. And this is very important paperwork. So I guess he went to take it up to the county clerk, which is...
Rick Spangler.
That's right. And he was with Andrew Pop, a friend of his, and he's also running for office.
Right, in the district, in District 5.
That's right. And so he went up with Mr. Ingram, and he testified yesterday at the hearing that Mr. Ingram has against Mr. Spangler and the city of Muncie and the election board.
Mm-hmm.
He testified yesterday that he heard Mr. Ingram ask if his paperwork was in order, and in fact, that he was told yes, it was in order.
Right. Yes, the hearing yesterday that I attended was very revealing about how the election board works and how candidates file forms. Now, of course, Troy was assured that his form was accepted and it was notarized, so he had no reason to think that it wasn't proper. Well, come to be, they found out that there were some errors in the form besides things that he didn't do.
Right.
And, of course, Troy, instead of appealing that back to the election board, he took the next step of going to a court and having a judge decide. His case was based on a couple different points of equal protection under the law, that he was treated differently.
Yeah, because of Marwin Strong.
Right.
They had information where Marwin had received help from
Exactly.
the clerk
He
specifically.
received help in the clerk's office to make corrections to his form.
But the difference was that Marwin was a Republican, so is Mr. Ingram. Right?
Well, they were running for the same
yes,
office.
but Marwin is a recognized Republican of the Republican Party.
Troy testified that he felt like an outsider, and he had issues with the former chairman, Victor Whitehead, when he ran in 19. And those issues, I assume, festered into who the new chairman is, Ed Carroll,
Yes.
who sat in the audience yesterday but was never called to testify or never said a word about the proceedings. I think Troy's case will come down to that equal protection, that he was treated differently than other candidates. And second of all, that the board may have acted arbitrarily because back in 19, another board member, a Democrat, Ashley Nichols, who testified, indicated that back in 19, they had other candidates that had problems with their forms. And they waived them and allowed them to run for office, which set a precedent that the board didn't use errors in campaign forms to oust candidates. This time they did. And that's another issue that may tip a decision to put him back on the ballot, but On the other hand, the election board had an appellate court ruling that showed that even though that another candidate who was taken off the ballot doesn't stop them from running because they can run as an independent or a write-in. So it'll be interesting to see which way the court decides with case law or on the process which they used that made him different from others.
No, I can say, in fact, that Troy and his wife both were treated pretty unfairly right out of the chute when Troy ran for office, and they were very surprised by that.
4 years ago?
Yes.
Okay.
They were very surprised by that, we weren't expecting it. And so this is an issue that I'm glad is being brought up. Now, what happens if he is found right and he just gets put on the ballot?
Well, what's going to happen, because the early voting's already started, the election board will have to have their voting vendor change the ballot, and then they're going to have to go back and find Republican ballots already cast, and then inform those voters that they'll have a choice to recast those ballots. I don't think they amount to many, because I checked last week, and they barely had 50 people show up in the first few days of voting. So, and if you look at, given that there's a primary of Democrats and Republicans, it's not going to be that big a deal. And the judge, Brian Body, indicated, given the timing, that the election's already going on, he gave both parties a day or two to come up with proposed orders and supporting evidence, because he'll rule by the end of the week.
Let's hope so. I think that this is something that needs to come to light, because this isn't the first time the Republican Party has tried to keep people off the ballot or refuse to recognize them. So, we're just asking it to be done like the law.
Well, we don't know what the law is, because like I told you, Liz, the case law goes one way, and as you know...
But it says no clerical error can keep you from being...
Well, that's another. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the other side is that errors shouldn't allow an election board to oust a candidate, but discretion.
In my opinion, it also clearly states there that the clerk is the one responsible.
That's an issue, too, that Delk brought up yesterday, that if the clerk does his job, we wouldn't have these problems. And even though there wasn't a lot of testimony about that, he did read a couple laws that the clerk does act as an election board and has to certify those candidates for election.
The election board was putting this up for dismissal, but that was thrown out by the judge.
Well, that's a procedural thing.
Yeah, well, I understand, but still. So we will keep you updated on that. We will do a breaking news update when that verdict comes in. And now we are going to go to, I believe, the teachers' pay.
Something happened just last night that Muncie schools, which, like many schools here in Indiana, have problems just keeping teachers, let alone getting enough teachers, because of what's going on in Indianapolis, of trying to tell teachers what to teach or kids what to learn, and it just goes on and on. The school board granted raises from $3,000 to $5,000, upping the base pay of teachers in Muncie, and there's about 350 now that are in charge of educating over 5,000 students. And the school board has been, it's one of those groups, you remember when schools failed, the state allowed Ball State to take it over. Ball State's had it for 5 years, and they got community giving to the tune of 20 to 25 million. The schools are now cash rich. I think the last board meeting I attended last month, they posted over $30 million cash balance. So they've got the means to get teachers. They're having problems with teachers in challenging schools like Southview, and they brought some new experienced people in to run that. But given that Ball State, the teachers' college that has been here for generations, turns out 4,000 teaching graduates a year, surely we can get enough people to educate our kids, get the grades up, get the graduation up, and hopefully we'll see see what that brings. Schools, of course, have to compete with every other school corporation, both public and private here. So it'll be interesting to see how things.
It's happening all over the country, though, that they're having trouble finding teachers almost
Right.
everywhere.
Well, teachers sometimes are under attack by conservatives.
And they're underpaid.
And they're underpaid too.
That's
and
the big
then
problem.
you've got kids that
Behavioral
coming out of
issues.
the pandemic, they don't want to do anything other than sit in front of a computer when they need to get back in person.
And then there's the school shootings.
Well,
I mean, that doesn't
well,
make it great to go do that. I mean,
it's
you have to consider that where you're going to be a teacher. You
We
know?
have to be thankful that we haven't had a problem
Amen.
like that here in
I
Indiana.
agree with that.
But let's turn the channel. I
Okay.
was in court yesterday after the Ingram hearing, and there's one of the first murder cases that came out of 2021 when there were 7 homicides that summer. And one of them involved a couple of kids. And the murder trial going on this week involves Andy Sales, who was I think he was like 16 at the time, and he's accused of shooting Martell Jones, who was 21. It was that Hegan Park shooting back in June of 21. The victim was found in the car, and he later died. Seals was picked up as a suspect, and of course he was a teenager at the time. A year later, the state charged him with murder and agreed to try him as an adult because they had 2 teenage shootings that summer, along with another 20-something kid that is accused of shooting a whole family. So this trial, I don't know if you know the Seals family in town, but they're a big family.
Oh.
And there were about 25 people there from the family supporting this kid this morning. I only heard a piece of testimony this morning that indicated it was a state police lab report on the gun and the bullets and the casings found. And there wasn't any conclusive evidence that the bullets matched the gun. So, and I don't know a lot of other details, but we'll probably figure it out. We'll probably go over and see what happens there because the family was upset, claiming they didn't do it, and also that they were trying him as an adult because he could face a lifetime in prison, and he's not even 18 yet.
That's just how can that happen?
Oh, and again, I probably should mention this too. These were kids of color, and the jury's all white.
Oh, well, that's awkward.
Yeah, what do you think of that now?
Well, I think that's going to cast a whole filter over it that the community might not be ready for.
Well,
the last thing we need is more vitriol thrown on the fire.
Or on the criminal justice system?
Yes, especially how pressed it is at the prosecutor's office here. Well,
that's another story.
This is true. Well, then we'll move right on to, I wrote a story last week, an unfortunate story actually, but fortunate if you look at it the way I do. We lost a great man last week. I went to the city council meeting last Monday, and you can read my story. I believe it's in the Manifest Destiny Reporter. And let's see here if I can find it. There it is. A community activist, city council candidate Marwin Strong dies. Right after I spoke with him at this meeting, we had a very long talk, a very, I think, real talk about how Republicans, Democrats, there's more questions than answers. Then we have shared a moment of peace and silence and a sunbeam. But I watched Marwin get out of his car and go over to the workers who were working at City Hall on the grounds. And he stopped them and asked how they liked their jobs and told them they were doing a good job and that if they need anything, water, pop, you name it. And that struck me because he's running for city council. He's run for city council before, twice as a Democrat. This was going
under
to
the
be,
last administration.
right. He was going to be a Republican, and he's a recognized Republican, like we talked about earlier with the Troy Ingram story. But he was very kind. I just noticed that right off the bat, and he was just beaming for me to
And
hear.
that was the first time you met
That's
him.
the first time I met him
In
personally.
person.
Now, he had been a member of the group,
Right.
his author page had, and I look forward to meeting him. But we were on a lot of different sides of the political arena, so there really wasn't any reason other than the one I found myself in at the moment
Oh, I
to go out of the
understand.
way to see each other, right? And so he gets lots of publicity anyway, so I don't
Well,
really
he
have
wrote
to.
a book, and like I say, I've known him for a long time. I remember when he was a kid standing up on the hill in Whiteley, where it was an old joint called McCallum's Place, after some of Ray McCallum's family. And they'd gather up there on a Friday or Saturday, 100. They would drink and dope and shoot each other. And Marwin got somebody iodined him, and he
bunch
nearly
of it.
died.
Yeah,
And
his
he wrote
mom
that
found him in the
book.
floor with a grand mal seizure.
Right. And
Yeah.
it took him years to recover. And he was one of the big ballers. He never got to play like people like Ray McCallum or Sam Drummer, who died. But he got around.
He did.
But I was thankful he survived that, and he's done so much for the community. And I just said hi to him the other night, but that was a heartwarming story that you wrote,
it was
and a
just-
moment in history too, because you never know.
It was. It was. I felt like I was meant to meet him that night. I felt like him and I walked away with a much better understanding. I mean, we even talked about my mission statement, his mission statement. And we talked about how life is short and how every moment is borrowed, and how we should stop and smell the roses, so to speak. And that was just really a poignant moment, and one that I will never forget. Matter of fact, I'm going to call them moments of peace that, when you find them every once in a while, the world affords you a moment of pure peace. And
I understand.
I'm going to call them moments my Marwin moment. So I had shared that on the Manifest Destiny Reporter and in the Delaware County Community Awareness Group. And I was contacted by Marwin's ex-wife, who was going to share that with his children. And that touched me. So we're going to do a lot.
Those were literally his last words.
Yeah,
yes.
I know. It really struck me. That's happened to me before in life, but never this earth shattering. I mean, it really rocked me. And at the time it did. But then the next day when I found out he had passed due to an unknown medical issue, I was just floored, because he was a 44-year-old man looking to me like in the prime
Yeah, I
of
was
his health.
with you, and
He looked great.
you were upset
I was.
the other day
I was.
when somebody notified me of the passing, which I couldn't believe either.
Well, we're going to take a page out of his book, and we're going to learn to stop and smell the roses here and there every so
Well,
often.
and do for others too.
Yes, and that's all he did with his life. He was about peace and everybody getting along, and he wanted to make a difference in this world so we could take his message with each one of us. If
Exactly.
So we're going to take a break for a moment, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about ethics in the city council meeting last Monday. Give us just a second. And we're back. Sorry about the delay, everybody. We're going to talk about the city council meeting that was on April 3rd, last Monday. And the main deal why everybody that went was because it was about a resolution that was brought in by Jeff Robinson. I believe it was, what number was that? 623, something of that nature.
It was on ethics.
1823, something like that. Ends in 23. There it is. Just so everybody can, yeah. So it was about developing and having an ethics task force to take 18 months to look into whether Delaware County or Muncie, specifically Muncie,
Right.
Needed an ethics commission. Now, that is literally what the ordinance was about, just getting an agreement to have an ethics advisory board, which would be made up of 2 lawyers, 2 HR members, a professor of philosophy, a professor of ethics from Ball State,
Right.
and then
A couple citizens. Now
and
remember,
2 citizens, and then
an accountant too.
an accountant.
Somebody
right?
to
Yes.
count the money.
So that way there would be 9 members of it. He originally had 7, but they amended it to have 9. And so it's made up of a smattering of different people from different walks of life. But that advisory board would take 18 months to do studies and do research and decide whether we could use an ethics commission or not. And the next city council would probably be voting on that.
Oh, obviously.
Right.
We got
18
city
months at
election
least.
this year.
Right. So it'd be 18-month study. That's what Jeff had in the resolution. Now, this was met not with resounding yays like I felt there should have been. I mean, come on. This is like we need it 101. Matter of fact, if anyone wants to recall, I believe when they were a brand new council 4 years ago, 4 years ago, that I went to them in one of their first meetings and asked if they would have a citizen review board, which is a all made up of all citizens, and they were chosen each one by a council member, and then they elected a chairman of that, and they were to oversee any city issues. And it's very, very similar. There's your committees, there's your commissions, there's your advisory board or task forces, and then Jeff wanted to do the commission. So the
Right.
commission's made up of professionals and other people, whereas the citizen one would have been made up of just citizens. But they would have been chosen by city council members.
Well, as you recall too, this is nothing new.
No, it isn't.
This was out there during the last administration, and nothing ever
Well, the
happened
city
with
has
it.
an ethics.
You brought it up just a few years ago, and they took no action, and that was amid.
Right after Tyler.
No, that was amid government corruption and police misconduct.
Yes.
And if those weren't reasons to have somebody oversee what's going on at City Hall, I don't know what else is.
And well, we want to talk about what might have sparked this ethics thing from Jeff. All right, Jeff is running for mayor. I will
Right.
say that as a Democrat. And so there was certain actions that were taken by our current mayor that I believe, this is where it gets into subjective because we don't know.
Opinion.
This is opinion, all right? So please leave it there. We're all entitled to ours. And we all know that I keep mine out of my group and out of my news thing. But here, I'm going to give my opinion. There were some things that the mayor did and has done in his term that I believe prompted this. However, arguing and other people see it as a political move.
Right.
Right.
Well, and nobody really spoke up about the reasons for it, other than that Robinson said it was only a look at it, a study,
Yeah.
and everybody.
They dove right in, didn't they?
They said,
If he said it once, he must have said it 48 times that this is just an advisory group to see if we need one.
Right.
And it takes it out of our hands. It takes it out of the legislative and the the executive branch of our government, and it gives it to people who are much more qualified, I think, to do so. We currently have an ethics code there with the city. But this
I
will
think it's in
also-
their human resources
Yeah, but this will
manual.
also look over that and see if there's anything that needs updating, because times they are changing, and they've changed a lot in 3 years. And I
Well-
believe this was done in 2018, 2019.
Yeah, I think that came out of some of what was going on then, but it amazed me that no more than a study grew so many comments over politics, over
How much was it going to cost?
how much it was going to cost, and who was going to be in charge.
Now, why do you think sparked this?
Well, there are a couple things that you mentioned the mayor did lately that might have sparked a response from the council. Well, it should have, because, see, the mayor brought in a developer, Horizon, from Atlanta, and I think the newspaper reported that the CEO, the principal, had been convicted of money laundering.
Yes.
And that
Twice.
caused city council a month ago to stop a tax abatement for
Well, they
this
tabled
company.
it.
Well, they tabled it. Well, a week later, the mayor turned around and got the redevelopment commission to give money to that developer
And we
for
should mention
infrastructure and to buy the property.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
Because you remember, that's what he did with the solar project, that the city bought that property in advance of the developer coming in. And then that didn't pass, and now the city's stuck with a property that they might have to clean up someday.
Now, what happened to the money that he received from the redevelopment commission?
I don't know if it's been released. There's another redevelopment commission next week, and we'll go ask.
And don't we have Isaac Miller, who is a member of the redevelopment commission? Who's
Oh,
also
the new
city-
council member?
Yeah, and who's the head of the redevelopment commission?
I think Jeff Howe is
Okay.
still the president.
All right, so there's a lot of discrepancy. There's a lot of dual hat wearing.
Oh, well, if you noticed, a lot of these people that they appointed as new council members replaced people who got other jobs or left. Yeah, they're usually appointed to boards and commissions by the mayor.
Yep.
But there was another thing that the mayor did that didn't get a lot of publicity. His campaign sent out a release a couple weeks ago accusing Democrats of misleading and misguiding the public on this Facebook site that's a parody called City of Munis. And it makes fun of the mayor, and it uses pictures and images from his administration, and it's basically something that's in fun. Now they think it's
Satire.
Yeah, they think it's Democrats up to their usual dirty tricks. Well, that didn't get a lot of play in the regular media, but we mentioned it in the ethics story because those were the things that came out of the administration, and of course with the Democrats. Jeff's running for office, but he works for Schaefer Leadership,
Isn't it
which
always
is a community.
political? I mean, honestly, it's the city council members. 5 of them are appointed, not elected.
Well, that's another problem that I've noticed here lately. That people who run for office and then they see a better opportunity and they leave. It's kind of like what you say to the mayor. Sometimes he's just looking for the next opportunity.
Yes, and it feels that way to the public.
I don't
know. I mean, just from what we see in the group. I did a poll in the group about how many people are who are registered with their party, official members of their party. 48%.
Oh, this poll you did the other day.
Is 101 people participated, and 48% of them people said that they were registered with their party. And there was 25% that said they had no plan on registering with their party.
Really?
Because
that many?
They felt both parties had issues that they needed to address before they wanted to be attached to that. And I found that very telling.
Wow.
Honestly, I did. And this has to stand with ethics, too.
How so?
Well, there's many things that go into our elections, like what's going on with Troy and other things like that. That have to say to speak to ethics too. And what I think this would be great about is that it would show it would cover city employees, it would cover elected officials, appointed officials, boards and commissions, and anybody we do business with as a city.
Well,
And that's the important one right there.
and that brings up the point that the mayor got called out on, of bringing people into town that they don't properly vet or even know who they are. They start giving them tax breaks, and before you know it, they build the thing and then they're gone.
Well, actually, the mayor said he did his due diligence.
What?
Right? He did his due diligence when he checked these people out. He went down and saw them at 2 different locations where they had these other things, and that was all a scam.
How did he miss? How
Because
did he overlook?
they took him to a place that wasn't theirs.
Oh.
It was a scam. And so due diligence, that's been kind of the word of the week, because, that's a subjective word. That's what happens when one person or one branch of the government doesn't have a checks and balances in place. And this ethics commission would effectively keep that from happening.
Well, as far as the discussion the other night, it seemed to me it was strange that the Republicans brought up that it was an election year. I think
They did. Isaac Miller first discussed it. He said flat out it was political.
And then Aaron Clark mentioned that it's an election year.
Yes.
Well, okay. So what? All you're doing is looking at it. You're not doing anything about it.
No, we're seeing if we need one. And the very fact that they wouldn't support that is telling as well. And that was a lot of comments that people made in the group and on the city page on the
And like I
actual,
say, the only thing that the Democrats raised politically was Jerry Dishman when he said, well, you've got a mayor here that's giving people a second chance, but he never really got into
Yeah,
what
I was
that meant.
offended by that, by his comment
What?
that we're a city of second chances. No, we're not. Dennis Tyler didn't get a second chance.
No, he didn't.
And that's a fact. And many people didn't get second chances. So
No, they
I
all
don't
went to
understand.
prison.
Yeah, I don't understand where this come from. That's just out of the blue, out of his hat. We're a
I
city
don't
of
know.
second chances. I don't want to be known as that. I don't want to be known as that. I mean, come on. We can't afford to give people second chances right now. They get one and done.
Well, I don't get a second chance.
Nobody does. That's what I don't understand what he's talking about. This just maybe he does.
Well, I think
He's not going to get a second chance if I have anything to say about it.
I think, like I say, it kind of upset everybody because you saw do you have that clip from Belinda Munson?
Oh yeah, Miss Belinda. Boy, she was very argumentative when it came down to it.
She's the record keeper. I don't know what she's got.
Okay, we'll play this little clip. Now, I noticed when I was watching the video,
What?
I watched the video to take clips out of it.
Okay.
And to get, specifics so that I knew what I was talking about. And I got wording right.
Okay.
And then I happened to notice Miss Belinda was just all up in arms, literally and figuratively, whenever we had
Anything
an
from the
opportunity.
audience? You want to vote on that
You
first?
can see here, there's
excuse
her
me,
arms
yes, we need
going
to
up.
Vote on the amendment? Roll call on the
I don't
amendment,
understand that. I mean, this is when the citizens were getting ready to speak.
Right.
Okay, she was all about it. And then she ended up speaking up too, as you can see in this next little clip that's coming up here. Because she got up and it was kind of a weird
Ms.
thing
Munson?
that she did.
I'm elected, I'd also like to make a comment. There's a lot of people have spoken out, and they've actually given some good suggestions. Is there any reason why we can't table this, take comments from the public to see what they'd like to see in it? That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Well,
Hey,
Like-
she's waving her arms there too. wasn't
Yes,
she?
that's what I said. Literally and figuratively, she was waving her arms about, and I did not understand that.
Well, I think that's what this
Appreciate the
committee's
input.
going to do. They're going to hold public hearings and ask people what they
That's
think about
it,
it.
And the other thing is, Jeff said, we're just doing an advisory committee, and that's going to cover all that. He had to keep saying it over and over.
Yeah, that all we're doing is asking them to study it. We're not.
Exactly, and that's good because we don't want anybody currently involved in any of these things to study it. That's the problem.
Yeah, the only thing I'm concerned about in a committee like that, I remember last year when the mayor came and wanted the council to appropriate over $30 million in federal stimulus money. Well, the mayor and the council got in cahoots and formed all these committees that decided how to dole the money out. And here a year later, after the mayor actually got the council and the council approved it, which again, the council should not have approved federal money for the people to go to other tax units like the Visitors Bureau, the Sanitary District,
Amen.
The hotel, the Horizon Center.
Yes.
I mean, that was supposed to go to people to help them through the pandemic. People who
And
lost
the rush they put on the restaurants to get everything ready for the Ironman, many of them restaurants never
Some-
even opened their doors again.
Well, and some didn't even hardly exist at the time. But anyway, you have to be very careful, and that's something council needs to do too. Being very careful, not only to appropriate money, but to specify how it's to be used, and not letting appointed boards and commissions just do whatever they want, because they aren't representative. They
And
don't
I'd like to see
report
them
the
look
people.
at the dual and sometimes two or
What?
three hats that people are wearing. I just don't see
No,
how. Yeah, I mean, the mayor himself holds several hats.
Oh yeah, he's still the development director,
Yes,
isn't he?
I mean, and
he's responsible for bringing all these people into this community.
certainly we have enough citizens in this area that we could have one be a city council member since they're
All right.
elected or appointed, and then others can fill other roles. I mean, we have the Shape for Leadership thing where you could sign up.
Yeah, that Jeff helps run.
Yeah, and I mean, I've signed up for it 3 times because my
You
stuff-
have the university
Yes, you have plenty of things that you can get involved with.
and
but-
Ivy Tech. I'm
and
sorry.
I know there's citizens that want to get involved. Why are people wearing dual hats? That's just,
I don't know.
I want them to look at everything. And I think that's a good thing. It did go through. The resolution was voted
Yeah,
through.
it's 8-1.
Yes.
I was surprised that
The one was,
Jeff held the majority after this hour-long
who
debate.
was the one vote?
I think it was Miller.
I believe it was too. That's what I wanted
Now
to
he's
say.
the new councilman. He's on the
But he was
redevelopment
so
commission.
mean.
What?
He was so mean and crappy. in his
Well, that's what you
comments.
thought.
I mean, I wasn't the only one. Several people did. I'm speaking for.
I just thought he was a kid, didn't know what he was doing. So.
Yes, that much was pretty much apparent. You really couldn't miss that. So we've seen a lot going on. We saw some stuff with
The Ides of March.
Yes, we saw some stuff with the public access counselor.
Oh,
And,
yeah. Talk about that a little
there's
bit.
The Republicans are just going off the hook, it seems like. They had a rough week. They were found at fault for having an illegal caucus. Yes, we had several Republican city council members present and 2 that weren't. Now,
Right.
Miss Lassiter was down in Florida, I believe, on vacation, so she
Oh,
was
yeah,
not
Jane-
present.
yeah, and-
she has since passed away. We want to
Yeah,
give our
I was
condolences
sorry to
to
hear
the
that.
family.
That kind of upset me too, because I was
Yeah.
at the council meeting just the
It
other
upset
day.
quite a few people. Ryan Webb, one of them. And then they excluded Ryan Webb, and he took it to the public access counselor, who found that they were at fault for doing that. And now, granted, you and I both know that the public access counselor, there's really no recourse.
They don't
unless
have
you
much
sue.
power, but they do have.
And you don't either.
But you can use that evidence in a court hearing or in a court to get a judge to rule. See, the
Yeah.
problem with what's happened over in Delaware County government is that outside of the prosecutor who is out the Justice Center, there is not one Democrat office holder in that whole government system now. I have never seen that, either Republican or Democrat, in my lifetime in a half a century. There's many reasons for that. But the main reason, again, that you see one party rule, you know what happens with it. Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Every time.
I mean, they kicked me out of a budget hearing last year because they said I was out of order. Well, I was trying to point out that they were raising taxes because they're giving 5% raises to everybody, which they should have, but they should have admitted not only does their own old assessment system that raises our values every year if we don't do anything with our home, our business, or farm. And, I don't know how still, because being from a farm
Me too.
community, I don't know how the value of dirt changes. But
Good question.
but again, they have to supplement this tax base because they lost value in the mall. The factories are gone.
Yeah, malls up for
Our
sale.
biggest employers are not for profit. They don't pay property taxes, whether it's the university or healthcare. But this problem with one party rule, I'd say the same thing if Democrats had the whole the whole government.
That's really defeats the whole purpose of the two-party system.
People don't vote.
Well, and
You-
why is that?
They
Because
don't-
you are
your-
giving
What's your
us
polls say?
Yeah, well, the polls said that they just don't believe in their party anymore, and that's a fact. I mean,
That's sad.
I myself was going to join the party. My party was Republican. Now I am at odds with that because locally, I can't get behind what's going on right now.
Well, didn't
There's just
they
no way.
offend you
They
one
did.
night long ago?
We discussed this in a prior podcast.
Oh,
but
yeah,
yes, I on election day last year.
No, we were hobnobbing around.
We went to Democratic headquarters. Took us about 10, 15 minutes there to write down a few results, get the
All right.
general feel of what they felt like, and then we went over to the Knights of Columbus to do the same with the Republican Party. But I couldn't see their screen. I'm missing an eye. Most of you know that. That's not a big deal, but it does affect what I do in a day. And so I couldn't see their screen. It wasn't as clear as the one over at
Right.
the Democratic Party. And there was an empty table full of some debris, empty food plates and stuff. And so I went up there to write down some numbers, and I couldn't find my pen. So here I am trying to find something in a dim lit room. So I sit down a second to look in my purse, and here comes Jessica Piper to let me know that I can't sit there. Table's full. And I look around at
Nobody was
empty.
there.
Nobody's there. This is after dinner. Everybody's drinking.
Well, they were
they're
all
partying.
up. They were all up celebrating.
Yeah, so
They'd
nobody
done all
was.
the offices.
And I said, I'm just going to be a minute. I'm pressed and I can't see, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting my pen. And she got really loud and kept repeating it so loud that I'm at the front of the room, in front of everybody. People are starting to look, and I detest public scenes. And so I said, you're right. I'm going to go. I think I've got my story. And that is my story from there. That's how I was treated as a person that was willing to join the party. And I'm no small person around here. That would have been a good asset for them to have. Instead, she humiliated
Or
me.
at least be respectful.
And disrespected my disability, disrespected my credentials, and tried to embarrass me. I'm not easily embarrassed, but did her best. It was uncalled for.
Well, you know what I got to say about that, too. She's a kid and she doesn't know any better.
Well, if you don't know, you should sit down and let someone else do the talking.
No, they should look at the Constitution and knows.
Well,
The First Amendment, speech, press, religion, assembly, partition. That's
the National
absolute.
Disability Act.
That's absolute. Well, besides the law.
They have to accommodate me.
I know.
And that's that. And if you can't even do it at your headquarters on party night, I don't know what else you're going to do.
I shouldn't have walked away. I would have.
That's all right. I handled it, and the story is what the
Well,
story is.
and you see what goes around comes around, too.
If you don't like the story I'm telling, live a different life.
Violating free speech, and what did Ryan do? Well, he got a...
Yeah, but they're still denying that.
Well, and they're denying him the
Yes.
right to represent.
No, he's one of those ones that are not recognized by the Republican Party either.
Well-
and he claims, and forgive me for saying so, but he says he looks for them to do the same thing to him in some way, shape, or form when he runs for re-election.
Well, yeah, and his wife is running for a council
Oh,
seat,
she's
too.
had no end of trouble. Her signs are
Really?
getting taken
Oh,
and
well.
stomped and run over.
Oh, my.
And then she had trouble getting on the ticket as well.
Why? Did they...
There was some discrepancy there. They tried to throw her off, but hers was upheld. So she's running, and that's against all efforts to keep her from doing so.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens
think
this
so.
city election. But one more thing about that, not that early voting, I think everybody knows you can go to the county building
Mm-hmm.
and do that. I fell upon a get out the vote effort by Jason Donati and George Foley the other day called Project 50. And they're trying to get more people to vote because Indiana has dreadfully low voting. And you know what happens in this state when they low vote? Republicans rule. They've got super majorities, the state house. We haven't had a Democrat governor, and I can't remember when.
I know the last election, some of the votes, Amber Green was talking about it on her page after she didn't win her
yeah.
city council run. But there were some districts that had less than 14 votes between her and the winner.
Right.
So every vote locally does count. That is when your vote counts the most, if you want to get the voting out of the way and you don't want to deal with it on election day, you can go up and vote at the county building before then.
Between now and May 2nd.
That's right. So go do that. If you think you're going to be out of town, you're not going to be able to get off work, whatever. They're not supposed to do that, but we all know, just get it done. Vote. If you're registered, go check and make sure everything's good and get up there and vote. Find out where your election headquarters is so that you know where to go. Some of them have changed through the years. If it's been a while since you voted, you might want to check on that.
Oh, there was a change. They moved the Southview precinct to Mering Hunt, which is just next door.
Right. Okay.
Now they're going to do that this fall and take Longview, where people vote in Longview and Whiteley, and move it over to the Career Center because Muncie schools don't want voters in schools anymore.
That's their prerogative.
No, they're afraid of mass shootings.
Just put a period on it. They're afraid.
What they've done before is just have E-Day learning. So they vacate the schools and let the voters come in. But, that's another fight that's going on, that we can't get vote centers, and maybe a handful of vote centers throughout Delaware County.
Well, we got a lot going on, folks, and that's just a little slice of the pie. So we will keep you updated, and our next podcast will delve into what's going on this week, and I'm sure there'll be lots to talk about.
Sure, it's spring.
And it's an election year, so
Exactly.
we're going to have tons to talk about. So thank you for tuning in. We're very grateful for you for supporting us through all of our pages and groups, and now the podcast. Look for some changes coming out with our newsletter, The Screamer, and we will talk to you really soon.
Hey, thanks again.
Peace.